Two birds perch peacefully on a branch within the dense canopy of a sun-dappled forest. A weathered tombstone marks the final resting place of Altija Eisenhood, a noble who lived to the age of 316. A lone man dressed in formal attire stands solemnly before the grave in the quiet clearing. The grieving visitor stares blankly at the monument, unable to accept the reality of her death and remarking that it feels like a cruel joke. A dark resolve hardens his gaze as he declares he can never forgive the individuals responsible for taking Altija's life. He laments that with her gone, both the country and the world itself have lost their meaning. The current reality has strayed far from the hopeful future she had once envisioned and desired. He confesses that he holds no lingering attachment or feelings for a world where she no longer exists. Walking away, he affirms that his will has remained steadfast and unchanged since that tragic day. The man leaves the gravesite, his long coat trailing behind him as he heads toward a structure in the distance. He approaches a modest wooden cabin nestled amongst the trees of the forest. The wooden door creaks sharply as he grasps the handle to enter the building. Sunlight floods the wooden interior as he steps inside the workshop filled with tools and crates. Inside, scientific apparatuses and beakers sit ready, with liquid dripping into a container alongside a prepared teacup. He picks up the cup filled with liquid, preparing to enact the plan he has long worked towards. Holding a small vial, he pours its contents into the cup, announcing that he can finally journey to the world where she resides. A sharp sound rings out in the room as the preparation concludes. The room stands silent, the wooden floorboards witnessing the culmination of his solitary efforts. He sits hunched over, the weight of his decision pressing down on him as he prepares himself. A massive numerical value of 1 million appears, signifying the immense magnitude or cost associated with his magic. Flashbacks reveal him scouring bookshelves by lantern light, desperately searching for answers in old texts. He reveals that he has gathered every scrap of information concerning Altija's death. Every action he has taken has been dedicated solely to the execution of this specific plan. He has devoted a full decade of his life to these meticulous preparations. Standing before a wall covered in maps and notes, he confirms his goal is to prevent the death of Altija. He adjusts his cravat, composing himself for the final step of his mission. He holds a small object in his palm, smiling as he looks upon it with hope. The object is revealed to be an ornate ring adorned with a clover design. He vows not to squander the final remnant of magic she left behind for him. Placing the ring to his lips, he declares that this time, he will be the one to act. The narrative shifts to describe the Divine Tree Empire Alvisage, the largest human nation on the continent of Etruria. A map displays the sprawling territory of the Divine Tree Empire Alvisage, which benefits from a world tree. One of the key benefits of the world tree is the exclusive ability for nobles to utilize a technique known as magic. Those capable of using this power are called mages, and they serve as a powerful symbol of support for the empire. At the pinnacle of this magical hierarchy sit the 6 great ducal families. These clans include the Samaniel who govern summoning, the Sanctus who control holy magic, and the Spiritia who master spirit magic. The remaining families are the Ornament who rule alchemy, the Maledict who wield curse magic, and the Choration who bestow blessing magic. However, history speaks of a forgotten family that once stood as guardians alongside the emperor. This is the Eisenhood family, a ducal house that lost its authority, land, and vassals 300 years ago. The man's mission was to save the sole surviving member of that fallen lineage. He prepares to embrace his destiny and intervene personally. He wakes up lying on the ground, realizing he has successfully regressed 17 years into the past. A young girl looms over him, scolding him for his reckless attempt to fight multiple adults to save another child. As he looks up from the cobblestone street, his eyes widen in shock as he recognizes the girl holding him. She smiles down at him with a gentle expression. She playfully asks if he dislikes being held by a stranger. She introduces herself cheerfully as Altija Eisenhood. Tears well up in his eyes as he whispers her name, overcome with emotion at seeing her alive again. 2 figures sit together at a table, a young boy reading a book while a woman looks on. The scene shifts to a domestic setting where the boy listens intently to the woman speaking to him. He recalls how she was the one who instructed him on the ways to survive in this unforgiving world. Her teachings were a lifeline to him, a child from the slums who possessed no knowledge of his own. Memories surface of simple domestic tasks, such as hanging laundry to dry in the sun. He remembers her measuring his height, marking his growth against a wooden post. In the present moment, The boy stands stunned while the girl smiles brightly at him, radiating kindness. Tears stream uncontrollably down his face as he struggles to articulate his overwhelming emotions before her. In his heart, he reveres the woman standing before him as his absolute savior. The girl looks down at him with a gentle, concerned expression on her face. A vision from a different time flickers, showing an adult man kneeling beside a woman seated in a wheelchair within a forest. Returning to reality, he marvels at the fact that she is alive and breathing right before his eyes. He mentally cries out to Altesia, expressing how deeply he has yearned for this reunion. Overcome by the moment, he buries his face in her chest, weeping as she gently pats his head. She interprets his tears as a sign of relief, assuming his nervousness has finally dissipated after the danger passed. Comforting him, she explains that she chased away his attackers and provided healing items to the other children. Despite her kindness, she adopts a sterner tone to impart an important lesson. She lectures him on the difference between bravery and recklessness, insisting that sacrificing his life to save others renders the act meaningless. He accepts her scolding with a meek apology, acknowledging his rash behavior. She smiles warmly again, expressing her fondness for children who are willing to listen and obey. Concerned for his immediate well-being, she asks if he is experiencing any pain or unusual sensations despite the healing magic. Internally, he notes the physical changes of his regression, observing his higher voice and lower vantage point. He clenches his small fist, confirming to her that he feels physically stable. Staring up at her, he reaffirms in his mind that the person standing there is undeniably Altesia. He realizes with certainty that his plan has worked and he has successfully traveled back in time. Altesia leans in close, interrupting his internal thoughts to ask if he is truly all right since he seems distracted. She pinches his cheek firmly, demanding that he not lie to her about his condition. She warns him that although she healed him, he had lost consciousness, and a worsening condition could still be fatal. He acknowledges her warning, feeling a sense of nostalgia at her caring but strict nature. She proposes that he accompany her to her manor so she can properly examine him, as she would feel responsible if he died after being saved. Her offer triggers a sharp memory, as he realizes these are the exact same words she spoke in the original timeline. She clarifies that she doesn't expect blind trust but wants him to make the decision himself. He reflects that agreeing to this offer marked the beginning of his life as a servant to the Eisenhood family. Recognizing this as a pivotal moment, he prepares to give the answer that will shape his destiny once more. She asks if he is forcing himself to refuse, but he denies it, unable to reject the path that leads to her. He agrees to go with her, stating his desire to quickly inform the other children of his safety. With a genuine smile, he thanks her proficiently and vows never to forget the favor she has done him. Altesia looks at him with a slightly surprised expression, perhaps reacting to his mature demeanor. She pauses, realizing she has forgotten a basic introduction amidst the chaos. She turns back to ask the boy for his name before they proceed any further. He introduces himself as Kaltz, a resident of the slums in the northern district of the imperial capital. He provides his backstory as a 15-year-old orphan whose foster parent died when he was 5. Walking through the streets, he mentally notes the date as April 8th of the year 908 in imperial history. He estimates the time to be 2 p.m. and plans to verify precise details later at the clock tower square. He assesses his current assets, recognizing that he is physically a child with no official identity. Just like in his past, he admits that he is currently a powerless human being with no strength of his own. His shadow stretches out before him as he realizes his sole weapon is the knowledge and information gathered from the future. A vision of Altesia bound in chains drives his resolve to create a new timeline where she is saved from death. He looks at the back of his small hand, understanding the magnitude of the task ahead. High buildings loom over him as he defines his new role in this restarted life. He determines that to succeed, he must become the new mastermind behind events. His adult self is depicted standing in a grand hall, symbolizing his ultimate goal of absolute retribution. He vows to bring vengeance down upon the 6 great ducal families responsible for Altesia's murder. A determination burns within him as he vows to save Altesia from her tragic fate. He confirms that the path to her salvation is already etched into his memory through extensive research. Yet he acknowledges that possessing this knowledge is merely the first step and is insufficient on its own. To truly rescue Altesia, he realizes he must obtain something more tangible than mere facts. He stands firm on the stone pavement, his small stature casting a shadow as he solidifies his resolve. The missing piece in his plan becomes clear as he identifies the absolute necessity of securing allies. He reflects on the rigid structure of the empire, where a distinct disparity in social status divides the population. At the pinnacle of this society sit the nobles, defined by their immense wealth, achievements, and hereditary titles. Beneath them are the commoners, citizens who possess the stability of employment and their own homes. At the very bottom struggle the poor, destitute individuals who lack both shelter and a means to earn a living. However, even within this lowest stratum of society, a brutal hierarchy dictates the order of survival. He arrives at a bustling area in the slums, noting that the power dynamics here are just as rigid. Inside a dim tavern, a group of rough men confront him, acknowledging that their subordinates caused him trouble. A man lounges with a bottle of liquor, exuding an air of arrogant authority as he drinks. He turns his gaze to the boy, seeking confirmation of the incident with a menacing smile. Feigning submission, Kautz bows his head and offers a polite apology to the man he addresses as Grud-san. He explains that his actions were driven by a desire to save an acquaintance he saw being beaten. Grud dismisses the incident with a wave of his hand, telling the boy there is no need to worry. He justifies the beating by claiming the child was being punished for scavenging leftovers in his territory. Grud shifts the topic to the woman who attacked his gang, correctly deducing that she must be a noble. He taunts Kautz, asking if he believes the nobles will be as forgiving towards the child as he is. The gang members erupt in raucous laughter, mocking the boy's situation and the disparity of their worlds. Grud Langus joins in the laughter, his expression twisting with cruel amusement. Kautz observes that this man rules over the poor by exploiting the remnants of his former noble status. He views Grud as a tyrant who acts with impunity atop a mountain of what he considers lesser beings. Internally, Kautz seethes with disgust, labeling the man a complete and utter piece of trash. Grud's demeanor shifts instantly as he slams a knife onto the table, signaling the end of his amusement. He declares the conversation over but offers the boy a job since he took the trouble to come all this way. Grabbing Kautz's face, he insinuates that a pretty boy like him could earn money by being used by nobles. Kautz stammers, appearing flushed and hesitant in the face of the man's predatory suggestion. He quickly pivots the conversation, claiming he came to report information about a potential financial windfall. Grud scoffs at the notion, doubting that a slum child could possibly know of any significant amount of money. He begins to crush the boy's cheeks, dismissing the information as likely worthless before even hearing it. Kautz persists, revealing he overheard a merchant and a noble discussing the secret transfer of jewelry. The mention of secret assets catches Grud's attention, causing his expression to twitch with sudden interest. He leans in with a dangerous glare, warning Kautz that there will be consequences if he is lying. Kautz elaborates that the assets must be moved immediately to avoid seizure during an upcoming investigation. He reveals the critical detail that a military financial audit of specific nobles is scheduled to occur this very day. He explains that this sudden inspection has left the corrupt nobles with no legal way to move their hidden wealth. Desperate to hide their illicit fortunes, they are resorting to bribing wandering merchants to smuggle the goods. Kautz concludes his pitch by stating this is a common tactic used by nobles to conceal assets they want to keep hidden. Grud leans back and demands a description of the nobleman to verify if the boy actually witnessed the conversation. Kautz describes a pocket watch engraved with a dog image but claims he was unable to hear the specific name mentioned. The mention of an animal crest leads Grud to confidently deduce that the target belongs to the Samaniel faction. A predatory grin spreads across his face as he concludes that they must steal the nobleman's assets. He praises Kautz for his intelligence, noting that the boy brought valuable information he couldn't act on alone. Feigning timidity, Kautz stammers a request to receive a small portion of the proceeds if the heist is successful. Grud agrees to the condition, promising that he will provide a share if the boy works with them. He officially welcomes Kautz as an ally to the gang, prompting the boy to act surprised and grateful. The other gang members loom in the background with shadowed smiles, silently confirming their agreement. Grud brings his face uncomfortably close to Kautz's, pressing the reality of their new partnership. The boy bows his head in a display of subservience and thanks the man for his generosity. Narration reveals that countless powerless children have agreed to Grud's deals in the past, seeking the comfort of an ally. However, every single child who was deceived by his words eventually met a ruined and tragic fate. Some of these children were exploited for their utility and then heartlessly thrown away like garbage. Others were stripped of their dignity, forced to endure humiliation in the slums. The most unfortunate among them had their lives stolen entirely, leaving only corpses behind. Kautz looks up with a bright, innocent smile, promising to do his absolute best for his new boss. Internally, he feels not a shred of guilt about using this man for his own purposes. The scene shifts to the orderly streets of the city where the plan is set to unfold. A large stone checkpoint stands ready, serving as the stage for the gang's ambush. Grud adjusts his cuffs, preparing himself to play the role of an authority figure. The gang members stand around in disguise, waiting for the signal to spring their trap. Grud instructs Kautz to go outside, confirm the identity of the wandering merchant, and give them a sign. He explains that they will stop the cargo posing as military police while Kautz searches for valuables. Kautz accepts the mission with a cheerful beam, showing no hesitation. In his mind, he confirms that he already knows the exact time the carriage will pass from his previous life. He recalls that in the original timeline, the carriage passed through without incident because Grud was not involved. The carriage appears in the distance, rolling toward the checkpoint just as he remembered. Kautz watches with a dark, determined expression, resolving to force events down a different path this time. The heavy wheels of the carriage clatter against the stone ground as it arrives at the location. Dressed in a military uniform, Grud announces that he will coordinate the operation from the shadows. The carriage reaches the gate, moving directly into the waiting trap. The disguised gang members step out to block the way, shouting for the vehicle to halt immediately. They aggressively demand to inspect the contents of the cargo before allowing it to proceed. A voice from inside the carriage questions the interruption, stating that the circumstances were discussed beforehand. The fake officers bark back that any resistance will be met with punishment under imperial law. A figure cloaked in black challenges them, daring the officers to state which faction they belong to. Flustered by the defiance, the impersonator yells that there is no need for them to reveal their faction. The figure coldly retorts that the gang members will be the ones receiving punishment. A magic circle flares to life as the figure reveals they have stopped someone from the ornament faction. The hood falls back to reveal a mage from the ducal family of alchemy, leaving Grud stunned and terrified. Panic sets in as Grud realizes he has attacked a target far beyond his capabilities. Kautz crouches behind a stack of barrels, his small body shaking violently as he watches. Despite the trembling of his body, his eyes remain icy and calm, revealing the cold calculation behind the act. A massive spell manifests as a giant stone entity named the Rock Titan, crashing down upon the unsuspecting gang. Grud stares up in sheer terror, screaming in confusion as he questions why a mage is riding on the carriage. The imposters frantically try to maintain their cover, shouting that they are military police stopping a noble smuggler from the Samaniel faction. While the adults panic and stammer, the mage's sharp eyes catch sight of a small boy hiding within the carriage. He steps out and coldly interrogates the gang, demanding to know their origins if they claim to be in conflict with the Samaniel. Desperate to validate their disguise, the leader claims they belong to the Kuria family under the ornament faction. The mage pauses, acknowledging that he has indeed heard of such a family existing at the far end of that faction. Seeing a chance for survival, Grud prostrates himself, begging for mercy and apologizing for the mistake. Fidel smiles with a chilling benevolence, stating that he has no intention of killing members of his own faction. However, his expression darkens as he prepares a lethal spell, fully aware of their deception. He exposes them as lying trash who are merely hired hands, unworthy of the faction's name. A colossal pillar of stone slams down with devastating force, crushing everything beneath it. Agonized screams pierce the air as the gang members are obliterated by the overwhelming weight. The cries are silenced abruptly as the heavy rocks settle over the mangled bodies. Standing amidst the dust and rubble, the mage dismisses the dead men as trash who received their just deserts. He holds a weapon casually, a satisfied smirk playing on his lips as he surveys his work. The real military police arrive on the scene, bewildered by the destruction and the carnage. He addresses the confused officers, introducing himself as Fidel of the Jade family. He asserts his status by declaring his allegiance to the powerful ornament ducal family. He calmly explains that he engaged in self-defense against bandits who were impersonating military police. The officers immediately salute and apologize profusely for the trouble their mismanagement has caused a noble. Fidel waves off their concerns with a cool demeanor, accepting their apology without fuss. He lies to the officers, claiming he merely crushed the thief's legs and instructing them to interrogate him after administering first aid. The police thank him for his cooperation as he humbly states he was only fulfilling his duty as a noble mage. With the matter settled, he announces his intention to leave the scene. He walks away from the wreckage, heading toward the shadowed area where the carriage had first stopped. He finds Kautz sitting quietly against a wall with his bag, waiting for the dust to settle. Fidel commends the boy for his intelligence and recognizes him as a mage connected to the 6 great families. He notes a specific item in the boy's possession but focuses his praise on the boy's role in the plan. He compliments Kautz on his performance, noting that he served excellently as bait to lure out the gang. Kautz holds up a vial, revealing that his true objective was never money or punishment, but stealing this specific medicine. Satisfied that he has secured the item he needs, he packs it away and prepares to move on. He bids the mage farewell and runs off, leaving the scene of the massacre behind him. Kautz navigates the alleyways until he spots a figure collapsed on the pavement. He stops dead in his tracks, a look of shock and recognition flashing across his face. A young woman lies battered and bloody on the ground, barely clinging to consciousness. He recognizes her as Lucia Dines and asks in disbelief if she is still alive. The injured woman looks up in fear, but Kautz holds his weapon defensively, promising to explain his knowledge later. He urges her to get up and escape immediately before their enemies return to finish the job. She refuses to flee, insisting that leaving now would render her arrival meaningless. Kautz grips his staff tightly, his expression hardening with a fierce determination. He declares that he came to this dangerous place specifically to ensure she gets out alive.